When it comes to the 250 member companies in the Real Estate Roundtable, what would you say are the main concerns right now? What's the mood on the ground?
I think first I want to say thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Katie. But the mood on the ground is a little somber right now, as I think overall, I don't think people realize the impact that commercial real estate has on the overall economy. When you peel that back, you think about the real estate industry as a whole, about 12% of GDP at the end of the day, employ about 15 million people, and sort of almost $600 billion in tax receipts go to cities and towns throughout America. And as this sort of slog continues to go on right now, the impact it's having on small cities and towns in America is pretty devastating because they're not receiving the tax receipts they are otherwise planning on. It's hurting basic services, policemen, teachers, and firemen. It's also hurting small businesses, pizza shops and coffee shops across the board. In addition to that, what's happening is our regional banking system, as a result of this, is under tremendous stress. As we all know, regional banks are the sort of the heartstones of any community in America today, and they maintain about 43% of their book is in commercial real estate. So a lot of them are under distress right now. In fact, I heard a rumor that almost 300 of them individually are in trouble at this particular point in time. So we've got to be very, very mindful of that overall. So to me, right now, moving forward, we need to be very, very cautious of the impact that commercial real estate has on the overall economy and work with this industry and our borrowers to make sure we have a soft landing, as people have been talking about over the last 6 months.
Well, John, I think that's fascinating because when we talk about contagion from CRE, it's mostly through regional banks, of course, their exposure there, and then, of course, the effects on the economy from that. But it sounds like you're saying that there are much more direct knock-on effects to the overall economy just from commercial real estate worries. It doesn't have to go through regional banks necessarily.
No, right now, Katie, I think one of the biggest challenges of people is $1.5 trillion of debt is coming through in the next 18 months. And that debt that's coming due was provided at about 3, maybe even 4% at the highest level. And right now, debt availability today is running in the 8 to 9 to 10% range. And currently there's no source of debt. So therefore, as a result of the lack of liquidity, there's a serious crisis out there right now, both in the industry as a whole and confidence in the regional banking system. And I think what we need to do as an industry, we need to work together collaboratively with the government to try to solve these problems. As I often say, the government is the one that raised interest rates 475 basis points in 12 months. The federal government is the one that sent workers home. We need the federal government to work with us on the interest rates. We also need the federal government to ask workers to come back to work. That's one of the reasons why some of our buildings in downtown urban areas are basically 25, 30% vacant today.
John, the federal government or the Federal Reserve, or do you see them as one and the same here?
I see they work hand in hand. I understand the separation between the federal government and the Federal Reserve. And my sense at the end of the day, I think they're trying to work in an orchestrated way to try to accommodate a soft landing. But at the end of the day, I think the idea of having 475 basis points in 12 months, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire at the end of the day. And I don't think they understood the unintended consequences of that action, coupled with the fact that they have people working from home. So as a result of their actions, we need the federal government to work with us to try to figure out a very soft landing for the industry as a whole. And there's some ideas that I have overall that I can share with you, but to me it's a very, very important conversation to be having in today's day and age, because I know the Federal Reserve is contemplating what they do at the March meeting. And to me, I think they're looking at the data coming in. My concern with that data is a lot of it's old data. It's 3-4 months old, like shelter, the information they have in shelter. One could argue that shelter has come down appreciably in the last 3 or 4 months, but some of the data they may be using is maybe obsolete at this point in time.
Well, it's a good point. Of course, monetary policy works with a lag, but of course the policymakers are operating on a lag as well. But of course, when you go through your resume, you were also the former chairman of the board of the Fed, the Boston Fed. So talk to us about what more can be done beyond just lowering interest rates at this point.
My sense is back in June of 23, the Federal Reserve, the FDIC and the OCC issued forward guidance on working with borrowers, and that was credit-worthy borrowers. I would encourage them to continue with that policy and reinforce that policy. It's extremely important to the industry as a whole because credit-worthy borrowers should not get hurt through this process. Secondarily, I think, which is important, the idea of the federal government. Federal government is the one that sent people home. The federal government is the one that should mandate people come back to work. All other countries in this world, people are back to work in the United States of America. I am dumbfounded why we can't get people back to work. It's proven that we don't have as much productivity at the end of the day. And I also think these entitlement issues, I would say to you, Katie, is if you think about entitlements, right now I live in Massachusetts. There was a referendum in Milton, Massachusetts about density. And the town sort of worked against that referendum, did not want the density. And so therefore, what's happening is that you cannot afford to build housing in these particular communities because of the restrictions on entitlements. We need to soften those up, and we need more support from the government. Then lastly, what I would say was important, these green initiatives that we've been talking about over the last, say, 18 to 24 months in a very, very thoughtful way, I think, with the Biden administration. But people don't realize they're adding anywhere from 6 to 11% in overall construction costs. Electrification, various other types of policies that put forth. We need to sort of slow that down. I'm not saying sustainability is not important. It is. But right now, with the financial situation we're in, I think we need to think about it as an industry and as a country. Go slow to go fast at the end of the day.